No, we only have three. Be one more person.
What about Zach?
So Zach's not gonna be here today.
Okay, good.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Krista, hi Krista.
Okay.
Can you, do you wanna leave it on that? That's gonna take some-
Yes.
some-
There we go. Okay, I just would like to let everyone know that it is, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Can you begin?
Okay, well, Zach is not here today, so I am stepping in as co-chair, and I would like to just welcome everyone. And do we wanna do introductions, just say who everybody is, and then we'll call to order? So I'm Susan Napak, I am the co-chair.
Chris Darcy, Commissioner.
Krista Lauer, Commissioner.
Go ahead, Brian.
He's not there. Scott, you wanna say hi?
Hi. Scott Archer, Deputy City Manager for Community Services. Glad to be with you today.
Brian, are you there?
It's muted.
There's Eddie. Hi, Eddie.
Hello.
Want to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Eduardo. I'm a commissioner.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Eddie.
And I think we.
And then Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Keller. I'm the Parks and Recreation Division Manager under Community Services.
And as soon as we get Brian.
Brian, are you on? Can you hear us? You're on mute.
He's also on video mute, maybe.
Shall I
Maybe we'll get
text
him.
him?
We can get him later
Okay.
or something. Why don't we just say welcome and,
Oh, and then Keith Bonogwin,
oh, sorry.
that was good. SPAC liaison.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order. We have a quorum without Mariah, is that correct?
Correct.
And our guests, were they here
No,
for public comment?
there were two guests that requested to attend the meeting. They might join us later on, but they wanted to talk about public art in general.
Well, maybe while we wait for them, if they're coming later, we'll approve the consent agenda and the agenda for August 14th. Does somebody wanna and the meetings from July 10th. I will make a motion that we approve those. Is a second?
Second,
So should we just move on to the
I'll, you have to
discussion
vote,
items?
so all in favor.
Oh, we have to vote. Okay, all in favor, or is anyone opposed to accepting the agenda and the minutes?
Okay,
Good enough?
that's good enough.
So we can move on to discussion items. 4A, downtown and West Salem art pedestal project. Keith, you wanna?
Yes, I'll take over for that one. So when we refer to the agenda packet, if you scroll down to after the minutes, I'm gonna share a screen in a moment. You'll notice that we received an email. I'm gonna share, there you go. We received a memo from our friends at the Urban Renewal area, Tory Banford. And what they did was they budgeted and allocated $30,000 of the West Salem Urban Renewal Tax Increment Funds to the Salem Public Art Commission for selecting artists and a sculpture for a pedestal that they have installed and ready to install some art. They did outline the project values, outlining uniqueness and a sense of place, as well as design goals, 1 through 7. These project values and goals will need to be combined with SPAC's guidelines for selecting and accessioning new public art. One of the suggestions was to include this $30,000 into the existing $50,000 that urban development downtown renewal allocated to SPAC as well. So that'll be a total of $80,000 for 3 different pieces of art.
Is that something that we can actually do, or do we have to keep the separate 50,000?
I believe the RFP can be combined and have line items for the different projects.
yeah, I think that would be the way, I think that would be the cleanest way to do it.
Yeah, an example, the most recent Public Works building has both wallpaper, bronze sculpture, and drawings. But I think that was different and they were combined into one pot of money. But it's essentially how we produce the RFP.
So I think with that, are you gonna continue with
Yep.
that, or?
The additional documents just outlined, we will most likely use this for the RFP process to talk about how the pedestals are engineered. I believe there is lighting for this pedestal as well, and they are the same as the ones that are located downtown. So it's pretty straightforward.
So just a comment. I know a lot of people refer to these as pedestals, but actually the infrastructure is below grade.
Correct.
So there is not a pedestal that forms above grade that something's gonna sit on.
That's correct. It is flush with the sidewalk.
Right, good, okay.
But a pedestal, if the artwork included a pedestal like the one out front, could be equal to that.
Yes, yes. Mhm.
Absolutely.
The other thing, I think, just for kind of setting expectations, is that in the sculptural world, these are not large budgets for sculpture. So for example, the very striking and handsome piece that's outside the Public Works building that we're in, that was quite a bit more, had a much higher budget than what we're looking at for these pieces. Yeah, just so,
Yep, something to keep
That's
in
good to
mind.
know, yeah.
yeah,
So it sounds like the ones downtown will be 25,000 a piece.
yeah. Mhm. That's almost not enough money. Yeah,
How much was the bottle one?
Yeah, I think it was about 30,000. And I would hope that those artists would be interested in responding to the RFP. Yeah,
Is
but-
that
and that
Lillian
was,
Pittman?
sorry,
Yeah,
Lillian
the Lillian
Pittman.
Pittman one, yeah.
Pitt,
Yes, sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
can I also just ask a question, because as I was preparing for this meeting, what is kind of the development plan for the West Salem area? I was over in that area before this topic came up, before SPAC. And what else, is it planned for more industrial, mixed use, housing? What is the plan? Do you know what the plan is over there?
I don't know the specific plan. Do you know, Scott, perhaps?
No, I'm not going to be very helpful in giving details on that. That's probably something we would want to reach out to Kristen and Lisa in our community planning and development department to get some better information.
You know, it would just be good to know, like, is this an area where there's gonna be a lot more pedestrian use? Is there a bike trail, bike lanes? What's the look and feel?
Absolutely.
And then how are people gonna experience it, as we move this forward?
And did they have a exact site in mind?
Yep. I think so, yep.
It's on
Down
Second
there.
Street. Yeah, I think this is part of the improvements to the Second Street, improvements, the sidewalks, the roadways. And if you go from Safeway all the way down to, not Edgewater, Wallace, it is mixed use with businesses, housing. What I think the redevelopment areas are going to be the old Rain Suite sites, which is industrial.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if they even have all of those sold yet, so it could be up in the air, but we could invite urban development in West Salem to speak to their plans for it, and it could give SPAC a better understanding of what kind of art piece they would like to select.
Mhm.
So I can reach out to them for the next meeting, if that's the wish.
Yeah, or we can even meet, maybe
Oh,
go
that's
down there and see exactly where, I think we'd have to do that with all of the sites. To
Okay,
get it, downtown as well, so that when we are talking to the artists, we also know, I would imagine the artists would wanna come and see the site as well, and see what visibility there is, exactly what Chris was saying, what goes on in the area, so it's really, I think the sites are as important as anything else to know what's going on there.
So the West Salem Neighborhood Association is also pretty active. I know a few years back, they had some ideas and, yeah, they have definitely expressed an interest in public art in the past, so,
So maybe we dig a little deeper. I think we can proceed though with setting up a subcommittee of SPAC members who want to be involved in selecting the art and the RFP process, whatever it is that we need to do. So I'm interested in being on that subcommittee. Is there anyone else that would like to be on the committee? Krista?
I would too, we can have 3 people.
Chris? Yeah, I think, I don't know, 4 people maybe? Or for now, then just the 3 of us?
Otherwise,
do
if
it
it
too.
doesn't,
oh, there you go.
Oh, hey, Brian. Did you say you're interested also?
Yeah, I'd be interested.
Okay.
Perhaps a motion to create the subcommittee, I can use that for the records.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to create a subcommittee to set in motion the downtown and West Salem art post project.
second,
Oh, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Anyone opposed? And we'll reach out to Zach as well, he might be
Okay.
interested since he actually has a lot of knowledge of various areas. So,
Wonderful.
what is the timeline?
The timeline, the only timeline that I heard was that, these were budgeted for this fiscal year.
Okay,
So it should be expended, by the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th. And by expended, it means the city needs to receive the items, before then. However, there are processes in which you can extend once you have a contract. If the product is not delivered by the end of this fiscal year, you can carry it over. So I think there is flexibility, but again, we would need to work with urban development to see if they have a timeline and a specific timeline for this.
I think you were also talking about the process was a little bit up in the air as far as who's gonna handle the RFP process.
Yes, perhaps Scott or Jen could talk about this, but when urban development first initiated the conversation about SPAC being involved in the selection of the artwork, the expectation was that SPAC would be responsible for the project management in terms of establishing an RFP, putting it out to the public, creating selection criteria, interviewing, scoring, and going through the whole process. It's different from the police station as well as a public works building art selection because it was part of the half percent for art. So the engineering department was in charge of putting together the RFP. But SPAC's role was simply to be part of the selection process. So the logistics and the staff work would fall on SPAC at this point in time, unless there might be other options that Scott, you might be thinking about, or if the new liaison, whoever that might be, would be able to take on that role. I talked with urban development a little bit, Tory Banford, and he said that we should have discussions behind the scenes to figure out the logistics of that.
We actually contributed pretty significantly to the RFQs for this building and the police station. So
But it was support staff who get it out there.
right, but we also suggested people that it be sent to and places where it be posted,
Right,
things like that.
right,
Yeah.
sure.
Anyway, I think SPAC has the capacity to do this without it being a huge challenge.
We ready to move on to the library art collection? We're gonna report on that.
Yes, I spoke recently with Mark Weinstein. He and the legal team are putting together paperwork it's an agreement for donation from the Salem Public Library Foundation to the Salem Public Art Collection. The paperwork should be completed within about a month. And that paperwork will document the agreement of gifting the city the 44 pieces of artwork that's in the library's collection. There's no physical transfer that we need to do because currently the artwork is already exhibited along with our collection in the library. So it's essentially some paperwork that needs to be completed with the city as well as with the library foundation. So hopefully we'll get more information from legal next meeting.
When that's done, is there gonna be any kind of public announcement?
I'm not sure, Krista?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. I did have a question. I know we had inquired if they have some sort of kind of inventory or database or anything that they've been using for their collection management, and if that would all be transferred over. Do we know? Have we heard back on that front?
I have not. I will contact the current foundation director. I'm not sure who that person is. I know Kate Van Emerson made a transfer last month with her retirement from that position. So I will be in contact with them.
Okay,
Thanks for the reminder, Krista.
I wonder if we have anything, I can look in my files. It seems like I've seen an inventory, I'm just not sure when or where.
We do have an inventory, and we have actually we have a record of all the labels that were made for the library. But I'm just wondering if they have kind of their own collection management system, or if they've been doing condition reporting, things like that, that aren't associated with us. So
Probably not.
probably not, but figure it's at least worth asking. So, and just updated images, things like that. So
All that redone,
Yeah.
when they deinstalled and reinstalled and all the players.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Moving on to draft strategic positioning document. Do you wanna-
I'll call it up right now, right here, let me share screen.
So maybe just a bit of introduction. So I've served on SPAC previously. Part of my tenure was as the chair. Came back on SPAC this year and came into a meeting where the commission was looking at kind of policy documents, tasks, things that were important to put together, to consolidate as a plan moving forward. And my comment at the time was that there was a lot of really great information, but what I saw it as being largely focused on a work plan, which is necessary, and that there was not a lot of vision in it. So I suggested I suggested some edits, and then I was volunteered to take some of my thoughts and put them into a document that might be positioned at a higher level from the work on the ground that would help both inspire people in Salem to want to support more works of art, and could try to think of public art and public art placement around the city as a way to kind of advance some of the city's strategic goals. Healthy communities, building esprit de corps, making sure that all of the work wasn't downtown, that we used our network of neighborhood associations. We have beautiful parks, they're well used. Are there ways that we could kind of think more globally across the city about what public art could do. Also linking some of this thinking to some of the elements of the work plan that talk about public art across the city that may be owned and undertaken by other entities like the Oregon State Capitol, the state of Oregon, Willamette, the hospital, things like that. So I took some of my original thinking, and again, full confession, this is a draft, these are my thoughts. I am a former public art manager and a kind of recovering cultural policy nerd. So I'm trying to spark conversation and ideas. None of this is sacred. So I see, and I do believe that we are the capital city of Oregon. We should be a destination. We are for many things, not for everything. And that we should be proud of what we have here. So that's kind of underlying. So I'm suggesting that our vision could include language like a wide variety of work to engage residents and visitors. A lot of people come here. We are the capital city, and that we have work that's in major centers, could be downtown, could be on the east side, could be where in historic districts, public buildings, parks, and neighborhoods. And I think part of this vision is already starting to be realized with the advent of the street painting. One of our biggest parks has actually quite a number of works, and there's plenty of work downtown. I am really biased about getting the work, I'm spreading the wealth. So trying to figure out, you tried to break this up into bites, and I'm not gonna read this whole thing. I tried to look at this so it could connect to our livability goals and our access to quality of life. All based on connecting a public art moving forward with a master plan. So we already talked about, we have an urban renewal district downtown, there's an urban renewal district in West Salem. You know, how are we connecting sites like the pedestals and the existing collection with new opportunities? Krista's done a great job with the social media, but if we could increase our communication so we're not just a reactive website and an occasional social media post, but how are we communicating to artists through the neighborhood associations, things like that. I also think there's opportunity here for temporary public art it could be seasonal, it could be used to activate spaces like the space around the Peace Plaza and around Mirror Pond, things like that. And I do think that, and I'm glad that so many people are here from the city today. If the city could, if all of the departments, and again, I worked in state government for a long time, if people could collaborate on bringing their resources to the table, it would be great, because we've got great parks. You know, we've got open spaces, we've got right of ways, we've got buildings. Anyway, so that's kind of that's the first part. I also think that if we could build kind of esprit de corps around the city to build value around what these things are. You know, we have work by famous artists, we have large works of art. Our library has a major collection. I think this building and what happened in the library they're just great examples of, we've got beautiful architecture, they're highly functional, and there's great public art. You know, if we kind of use the recent activity as you know, a benchmark, it's a great position to build from. We've also talked in next category about you know, stewarding our assets. So we need adequate funding to repair things, keep them maintained. We could use a professional collections management system, you know, so that our information goes into a database correctly, that can be accessed by the public, by researchers, by scholars, by students, and then, you know, we're creating more public benefit. And then again, if creating some systems so the collection is assessed for damage and needed repairs periodically. Let's go to the last one. And finally, and this really should be kind of a Visio thing where everything is interconnected. But I do think, and I've witnessed this both in our SCAN neighborhood, thanks to Brian, and in Grant, thanks to Susan and colleagues, the public art where people are involved in the process, they may not be holding a paintbrush, but they come out to see things being created or being installed. You know, these are reasons for people to come together around a good thing. I also think that in terms of the community building and connecting, that we might create, as we think about this next RFP or RFQ, you know, applying a DEI, a diversity, equity, and inclusion filter for everything that we do. And then again, you know, helping through communication, maybe some coaching. You know, we have people here we're excited about these things. We're in a position to help other parts of the city get excited about a mural, or I love the utility wraps. You know, I'd love to see them across the city. But these are things that people can get excited about. Kids can see, people can ride their bikes by. You know, you can really build community around this stuff. And then I think, you know, you can declare a holiday around public art. You know, celebrate the Peace Plaza or the newest mural or things like that. But, you know, help people get excited about these things that we all own and share. So that's my thinking. I really do apologize that I didn't get this out in advance of the meeting by more than an hour. I've just had a very busy week on my own, with my own schedule, but I don't know how you wanna, people, wanna comment, take it home and read it, bring it back, junk it, like I said,
It seems to me like, the plan that we worked on, the strategic plan, what do we do? What are the tasks that we need to do? This seems like a really perfect kind of introduction to why the heck do we want to do those things?
Right.
So you've put it all very, it really, it's really, I think it's really well done and says everything that we were thinking anyway. It was almost like, well, that's a given, but it's not a given. It's not that everyone understands why we need to have a public art. I think this kind of encapsulates it all, and then it's a sort of a perfect cover page kind of thing, or introduction to our strategic plan of like, okay, how do we propose as a public art commission, volunteers, whatever, to actually try to implement and make this happen, which has always been my issue, being impatient. It's like, okay, how do we do this? How do we get out there and actually make these things happen? And I know it's more of a long-term thing, and you have to spend time planning, but there are certain things that I think we can get started on actually doing right away, and that we already are doing. But I totally appreciate that you have the ability to kind of see the big picture and put it all together that way.
Yeah, I think this is fantastic, Chris. Thank you so much for taking the time to put this together. I think, talking about communication and how we're able to communicate more consistently and effectively to the public is a really big part of what we're all trying to do. And, I think this framework really helps as well, not only with what I can use for social media and making sure that we're keeping people updated and engaged, but just keeping all of us kind of on our own path as well. Because I think, focusing on the tasks is great, and knowing what every person can do and what they can bring to the table is great, but being able to kind of come back and see everything full circle and why we're doing what we're doing, I think this puts that in a really, really lovely context. So I'd love to kind of take some time and look this over, and but I think, yeah, thank you so much for taking this on. It's really appreciated.
Logistically, what I can do is say this to my OneDrive, and share it with all the commissioners. And that way you can see each other's comments, and interact with each other, through that route.
I'd almost like to kind of key, the main points to what we have on our plan to actually implement toward the things that are on here. So maybe I can kind of work on that.
Okay.
But the other thing, the main thing though about this is, we've discussed this at length, is what SPAC is charged with for the city. It's very narrow. It doesn't, necessarily address all the things in this document. Temporary public art, there's no avenue for that other than the street paintings at this point, which are not really even under the auspices of SPAC. So that whole part of it is something that we really feel strongly that I believe that we wanna get settled, in terms of, you had put together that chart of the codes that need to change in order for SPAC to really be involved in more than just the public art collection. So how do we, what's the next step on that?
That's a good question. So with regards to it was called the Surface Art Public Matrix. And that was an intersection of SPAC's interests, and they identified each of the different types of surfaces. For instance, murals, temporary art, light art, art in parks, art on fences, all of that. We intersected it with the existing code that maybe perhaps serve as barriers to that happening. And all of this was in the context of Councilor Nishioka's motion to allow temporary art in Salem. The next step is legal, working with the next SPAC liaison and the SPAC commission, or SPAC, to evaluate these barriers and see exactly what can be done with existing code. Legal is hesitant about opening code multiple times to make changes. They would like to do a one opening, make the change, and then close it. And so that's why we took the time to look at each of the different possibilities. So like I said, the next step will be staff working with legal to see specific codes that need to be changed and how they want to do it. But we do have to keep in mind that the sign code exists for a reason, building and structure codes exist for a reason, and parks, the way parks is run exists for a reason. So there has to be consensus on how code will be changed. So perhaps a subcommittee in the future to address those, to evaluate the existing code, look at other communities, how they address that specific surface. I think those are the next steps.
If I understand correctly, legal felt strongly that any of these public artworks, be it temporary or whatever, should come under the auspices of SPAC.
Absolutely. The chapter 15, I think it's 15, public art, delineates the Salem Public Art Commission as the city's arbiter of art. The reason being is that there should be a public process and not one person or department or director responsible for accepting public art into the collection. And by allowing a piece of art to be part of the collection, it goes through specific guidelines on what can be included.
But I believe, were they referring also to temporary works of art?
Exactly. All forms of art, temporary, permanent.
So not necessarily within the collection, that had to be accepted within the collection.
Correct. So for instance, the street paintings, they are technically part of the collection because it is on public property. They're on the right of way.
So they're considered part of the public art collection?
I don't think they are, just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Because they're not permanent, I mean,
Right.
they're designed to kind of, they can be allowed to fade, they can be repainted, or they can go away over time.
Also, they
But it's
were
not part
not
of
brought before SPAC.
Correct.
Right.
Not part of the
Exactly.
collection, but part of the city has authority over what happens to those pieces.
Well, yeah, because they're on public right of way.
Correct.
Yeah. I just wanna, I guess I didn't observe the city council meeting where Linda Nishioka brought up her interest in the temporary public art. And I do think that there's a lot of opportunity there in Salem. It can be cheaper, it can be performance-based. The activity can activate an underutilized space, a neighborhood where there might be issues with people hanging out in the wrong places, what have you. And I just hope that we can find ways to propose solutions that are not gonna be where unnecessary barriers are put up. That's the point I'm trying to make. Because I drove by the Peace Plaza the other day, and it's clean, the landscaping around the library looks great, there wasn't a soul there, and it's kind of like, okay, well, what could you do there to make it attractive? And also imagining that the city civic center is gonna be rehabbed by Hacker, it's a great opportunity for another great project. And, it could be a dance piece set there, it could be children's performance,
Arts festival.
exactly,
Yeah.
you think about, you shouldn't have to enact a city code to make some of these things happen. They're low risk, let's put it that way, and they're gonna go away by design. So,
And everyone thinks about SPAC and in conjunction with murals too, so a big chunk of this too was about relaxing the requirements for murals, which we haven't really talked about in a little while. We had the application that we were gonna simplify and maybe change some of the requirements on that too, so that's something that's kind of still there.
Yeah, it's on the
Yes.
matrix.
Yeah.
Currently, public murals have a 7-year easement granted to the city, if it's on private buildings. Legal said that, that's part of the code and would need to change if you wanted to, reduce to 2 years. But that's just one piece. We want to take a look at all of the different services that we would like to make changes to and then offer that as one change. Yes.
So were you suggesting that we form another subcommittee to move that forward?
That's just one way of working with the legal team. If SPAC wants to get more involved with the evaluation of city code.
I thought Susan raised her hand.
That's why the matrix was a really good first look. It
Yeah.
outlines the city department, so the city departments and representatives can have that internal conversation. And what SPAC brought to the table was essentially, here's this idea, can we do it? And what would the outcome be? And then it would be up to the city to evaluate that suggestion.
Well, you've done a great job of kind of setting the stage for all that with your, your strategic ability. So maybe we wait to see what the next is on what their talents are. Hopefully, they can help guide us through that process because none of us are bureaucrats.
Public servants.
Public servants, yeah, and I don't know, I certainly don't have the type of brain for that kind of thing, although I can make suggestions. So maybe we put that into the next agenda of just like, how do we move forward with that? Does that sound right to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, next, Krista, social media,
What about the library art kiosk?
we did that already, did you?
No, we talked
we
about
didn't.
it behind the scenes.
Oh, sorry.
So the library art kiosk, just for those new, David Muller from the IT section of the library put in a Sprinkles grant, which is an internal grant, and he received $2,000. He purchased a large touchscreen TV monitor that has a pedestal. The vision of the library was to include all of the art in the library, so the Salem Public Art Collection, into this kiosk, and visitors can come and swipe and choose and search. David is working with the GIS department because the GIS put together a story map that has it visually located on a map. And so I'm currently working with Kenneth Diora in GIS. He's presented a couple different formats, and we chose one format that allows us to include all the pieces in the collection, organized by artists and media. So just imagine, and it's web-based so that it can be locked down so no one can come in and do different searches on the internet. So it's a GIS-based application, and you can search by, I want to see sculptures, and then all the artists that have sculptures will be listed by name, and their different sculptures will be under their name. You can just scroll through it. One of the challenges we have is having high-quality photos for these, for the map. A lot of the photos that Krista can attest to are just, I guess, mediocre camera photos. And so that was what we had a conversation last time. How do we want to update the photo gallery of our collection? Is it going to be an internship project? Are we going to hire a contractor to do that kind of work? Do we just do it internally? How, so that part of it is still need to be solidified, but the programming is underway now.
And what's the source of his data?
The source of the data is the collection that we currently have
Okay.
access to.
Okay.
So he mentioned we need labels for each of the artwork. Well, we have photos of the labels or even the Word document for each of them. That can be inputted into it. And then the liaison or perhaps a SPAC commissioner can be in charge of updating it when we have new art coming on. And this can include new murals. And the same database can be distributed online to the entire world, so to speak, not just the TLs.
Krista, were you gonna look at the photos and kind of evaluate what photos were useful, what we could use, what were mediocre, what were good?
Yeah, I've started kind of making an inventory of the inventory, and looking to see which works we have high quality photos for, which works we have labels for, just kind of at large, as a whole. And the library has a little bit more. The only issue is with all of the library foundation works currently, in our database, we don't have specific folders for all of them. So essentially whatever the kind of the photo is that's linked to our inventory is the only image that we have. So again, that's kind of why I was inquiring if they have maybe some of their own photography that they've been taking. We can utilize that. But I think at this point, there will need to be a lot of photos that are updated.
Yeah, and the only works in the entire collection that have labels with any description are the works of the library. No, there are no other labels with that, with fact-checked, accurate copy.
Yeah, what I've been doing for the posts, some of them have been utilizing that information, but anything that's not included in the library, I've essentially been researching and looking again through our database, seeing what we have, and coming up with that. So yeah, there's definitely lots of research that can be done.
And the current system, in quotes, are essentially folders. There's news articles from them and some of the pieces or artists. Sometimes artists have two different folders for two different pieces that they did. So your suggestion, and I think we had a little bit of discussion with Zach about acquiring a art management system. I think that would really help aggregate all of the information that we have on all the systems. So that could be something that you guys focus on as well.
Maybe we put that on the next agenda as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would save time in the long run.
Yeah.
To have a real collections management system that our the city's information could be put into. I know some of the sculptures, for example, at the convention center are really hard to photograph. They're not up against a clean backdrop, there's traffic that moves around. And it seems to me that, I know there's not capacity to have an intern to work on this necessarily, but there are some professional photographers, longtime folks in the Salem community who may either have access to images, like, just forgot his name, I mean, some of the longtime photographers for the Statesman, or some of those folks may be at a point, Ron Cooper, yeah. Ron may have photographs that would be great to have from him as a gift. But I do think there are people like Ron Cooper who might photograph a chunk of things as a volunteer. People care about things, and if they're asked for not writing labels for 100 pieces like people volunteered for at the library, but could you shoot 10 sculptures or 12? You might get a yes answer. So.
And Zach is a professional who deals with this all. So he would probably be a great resource for us to actually say, what should we do? Outline plan to get
Just for information, the SPAC is in charge as authority of the Public Art Fund 176, which is currently has around $40,000. You're in charge of the budget and expenditures and that, so that's something that the commission identifies as an investment. Then, we would go through the quoting process, find 3 different vendors, and then select it that way.
Okay, I'm sorry I had skipped ahead here. So, subcommittee reports. Actually, the neighborhood association chairs meeting, I was gonna say a few words about. The next meeting, is September 26th. And we had postponed from the last quarterly meeting to do a presentation, but in light of the transition coming up, with a new staff liaison, and also a end of year report that gets done to council every year, which would sort of coincide that we were gonna build off of that, but it seemed redundant and maybe reinventing the wheel if we have to kind of do the presentation on September 26th and then revamp that and end of the year. So I would like to propose that we aim for the following quarterly meeting, which I guess will be in December. Yeah, probably December. So rather than do it on 26th of September, and I can contact Irma.
Yep, Irma Coleman.
And let her know that we're gonna push it out even more.
Yeah.
So if everybody's agreeable to that, I know we really were anxious, or I was anxious, to get out to the neighborhood associations and kind of introduce ourselves and let them know what's going on with us, but with so many things in flux, I think we might make a better impression if we had ourselves more together with more going on and a clearer vision to talk about.
Yeah, and just to add to that, in December of 2023, the chair, Zach, did a presentation to council. It's according to code, the Salem Art Commission must present a financial review as well as, but the financial review turns more into a financial and accomplishment review of what's back there. And so you'll have to plan for that as well in this December. And so with having all of that data accomplishments completed, you can take that directly to the neighborhood association.
Take it on the road.
Yep, take it on the road.
Right, sounds good. Okay, now Krista. Social media.
So we've been continuing very applicable the sculpture related social media posts that I've been doing for the summer. We did have some technical difficulties this morning. We found out with our database. So the links that we have to the images are not currently uploading correctly. So fortunately, Keith was able to find some images in the database of some of the works that I was going to focus on. So it will be going up tomorrow instead of today. But I'm going to, kind of see what information I can get, what, again, images we might have that are in those folders that might not be on available on the links. But yes, I think this is a very timely discussion to have about having a collections management database and having everything in one place and really knowing what information we have and what information we don't have. And I think, putting in the time and effort and potentially funding to make sure that we do have this, because I think, it's important to know where the art is and the history of all these works and have images of these. And so I think it's really fundamental to what we're all doing, is being able to access that data and then allow members of the public to be able to access that data too if they have questions or things like that. So yeah, it'll go up tomorrow. But
What's it gonna be?
we're gonna do black discs tomorrow, and I'm also just because that's part of our we're doing some conservation efforts on that too, so kind of letting people know that that is part of the history of public artwork, and you know, stay tuned for its new iteration, and just kind of continue that conversation about the life of a work that lives outside in our city. So
Sounds great.
Great.
Thank you for
Yeah.
doing all this.
Yeah, great job.
Yeah. And it, I mean, it really will all, you know, when you think about just the outreach with the information, and then having, even though it's a lot of work to coordinate everything, it's gonna need to be done for that kiosk at the library. So it's all moving in the right direction.
absolutely.
And that segues right into the art collection maintenance of black discs.
Yes, so the black disc, the image I sent to you, Krista, was the cleanest image I could find. All the other images were really just documenting its deterioration. So, the black discs are in Mirror Pond. People can climb on it, touch it, whatever, interact with it. We did put not an RFP, but asked our two conservators or contractors of record, ARG, and I forget the other one, to provide us a quote on what it would take to evaluate and potentially repair. The quotes we got were just to evaluate, and they were over $5,000 each. We then went to Lee Immonen, who restored the rooster and drummer, and he quoted us over $5,000 for the repair of it. Because it's over $5,000, according to the city contracting, we need to go out and get 2 more bids. At the last commission meeting, there was a motion and was approved to go ahead and secure those 2 additional quotes using Lee's outlined course of repair. I decided to wait until the new liaison comes on board, so they can start that process from the beginning. And so that's on hold until we find a liaison. The drummer and rooster has been successfully installed at the Center 50 Plus facility. We've been getting rave reviews. Marilyn Daly says all of her attendees, members are loving it. The only thing we need to add to it is signage for it. There's no signage explaining who the artist was, what it is, the purpose, etc. We're thinking a pedestal.
A stanchion or
A
some
stanchion.
kind of a stand, maybe that goes next to it.
And we're hoping perhaps Krista could get the information from these labels and create some signage for that. Maryland did state that they can host it only to the end of October, but
However, I saw her at the Englewood Forest Festival, and they love it so much, and she says she's having a hard time keeping the knitters from like knitting scarves for it and decorating it. But it seems that they might be able to keep it a bit longer, and I asked her, is that okay for me to make public? And she said yes, because where it's situated, it seems like it's not really in the way of anything. I think they were anticipating that it might be, so there's a good chance we could have it there longer.
Okay.
So, and if they get very attached to it, who knows, maybe they'll wanna keep it there, as long as they don't knit on it.
well,
Yeah, yard bombing.
Yard on it.
well, SPAC is the sole authority to determine where art pieces are placed. So it's up to you if you want to keep it there or think of something else in mind for more long term.
Yeah, I think I'll go over there, I haven't taken a look at it yet, also to just see, for signage, I was thinking maybe something could easily be moved to another location, that's why maybe something on the stand, but depending on the spacing there, whether they have room for it, or whether it would be better to do something temporary there and then something permanent, but I think we'll over and take a look at that too.
Yeah, maybe we could go together.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it over there and
Yeah.
see the repair job.
Yeah. Let's-
Yeah.
The next one on the list is Shemaikana Parkade Graffiti. Just to review, Shemaikana Parkade is by the, was it the old J.C. Penney's? Rudy's Steakhouse. There was some graffiti on it next to the elevator. I reached out to facilities. Facilities cannot do the repair without damaging it because the original installation did not include a anti-graffiti coating. Commissioners requested that I reach out to Cherie Walgren in Urban Development to see if they can add it or if their maintenance can pay for it. And Cherie responded that it is not, they do not have maintenance for the artwork downtown. And because it is part of the collection, now it's SPAC's responsibility for that maintenance. I inquired about the current paint job that is being done at the parkade, if we can wrap the repair into that. And facilities is responsible for that, it's already contracted out. So what I think I'm bringing to the commission is just for us to reach out to Blaine Fontana, the artist, to do the current repair and then work with the facilities group to see if they can budget coding for it. If not, then it'll be the responsibility of SPAC to maintain it with their funds.
I would imagine that Blaine would wanna give us an estimate of how much it would cost for him to do it. I doubt he would come out and do it. Maybe he might, but
He might, he's pretty busy. I know he's working on another big piece for a restaurant, like a big,
so
but
how-
he's a very professional person to deal with.
Yeah.
And, yeah, he'll tell you.
So how do we do that?
I can email Blaine, say, hey, and send him the photos, this is the damage.
Yeah.
Our facilities crews are not comfortable doing the repair without damaging it. Would you be open to coming down and taking a look at it and perhaps repairing it? Would we offer to pay for it?
Yeah, we would have to.
Yeah.
Okay, we offer to pay for your services, what would be the estimate?
Yeah.
Then I can report that back to the commission.
Do we need a motion?
I'm not expecting funds, so I think we're good.
Okay, do it.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Just a quick question. The,
Yes.
the mural at the Cherry
Mhm.
operation, did they ever come back and request permit? Okay, so Blaine would not be coming to Salem to do any work on that project.
No, the next process would be to submit another application.
Yeah.
And under the new rules, which we all contributed to, it would allow them to paint the curvilinear surface.
Yeah, the tank.
I wonder if they've just decided to leave it.
Maybe they don't know.
I think they know.
Oh, they were at the
They're
meeting,
aware.
yeah.
Because they're-
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, they're aware, but then I think it would be another addition, probably large expense for them. I don't know.
Okay.
Never know.
And the next one on the agenda, this is Jefferson Street mural, but it's actually Madison. If you zoom out, this is the fairgrounds, and then this project, I'm gonna defer to Commissioner Diaz-Salazar. Eddie, would you like to talk about it?
And Keith, it doesn't look like it's sharing if you're trying to.
Absolutely was trying to share, so thank you.
We can see it.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna be completing it by Wednesday.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Yeah, it's taken us a long time just because there's like a whole thing going on right now in Portland, and some of the artists like backed down. There was a documentary that recently came out, and Portland Police Bureau got a hold of it and started doing a major crackdown. Plus, they invested $4 million on graffiti cleanup. So it's like a weird gray area right now for art, like graffiti artists in Portland, and some of those people were going to be painting, helping finish this mural, but we got it figured out and it's gonna happen. But yeah, that's why it's taken so long. And this one will be coated in anti-graffiti layer. it's a little expensive, but I think it should be a standard for any murals happening from this point on.
That's a good point.
I agree.
I agree, yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell me the cross street, so is it Madison at Jefferson or,
It's 15th, between 15th and Baker.
So it's an alleyway.
okay,
Yeah, it's an alleyway. I wouldn't suggest driving through the alleyway. It has a lot of potholes right there on the Ethereal Aesthetic Studio. There's some parking that you can like park there, and you might have to walk around depending on whether the fence is open or not. But it's a pretty rough alleyway. So
right,
And you can see the purple here.
oh, got it, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
When will you be working on it and?
from Monday to Wednesday, probably like all day, those 3 days from probably like 11 a.m. till the sun goes down.
Have you checked the weather? I heard there's rain in the forecast.
Yeah, we're just gonna try to see what as much as we can do for it.
Okay.
It's looking like Wednesday is the only day that it has like a 30% chance of rain, but we're gonna try to have it wrapped up by then.
Wonderful.
are you gonna try to do any PR around this?
Once we finish it, we don't really want people to like go and like just disturb it like while it's going on. As long as just because the owner has been having so much trouble with the homeless in the area.
Oh,
Yeah, there's been a few camps that have popped up since it's near the railroad tracks.
mhm.
They don't want too much attention to it until it's finished.
Okay, good points.
Yeah, but we really want to have a little showcase day or something when it's all complete and when the owner can allow people to come see it so he can open the fence and whatnot.
Mhm.
That's
Sounds
great.
great. I mean, it's been so hard to get any mural moving forward, so this is exciting, and it's in a part of town where, there's not a lot of other public art, so that's exciting.
Yes.
And photos, we need photos.
Yeah,
Which
I'll
neighborhood association is this in? Susan, do you know?
I think is it,
Yeah, northeast.
is it then?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, because they wrote the letter of support.
Yes, yes.
okay.
Cover letter, right. Okay, new business, staff liaison transfer of duties. Scott, is that your cue?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, looked like my screen had frozen for just a quick second there. Good afternoon, and again, Scott Archer, Deputy City Manager for Community Services. So thanks for the opportunity to join your meeting here today. So we are, as I think you all know, Keith has accepted a new role with the city, which in his new role will not allow him to continue to be the liaison to the Public Arts Commission, and which leaves us some big shoes to fill. Keith has done an excellent job, and I've certainly appreciated Keith in my time with the city fulfilling this role. As you all know, one of our challenges with this is that this is not funded as its own full-time position. We don't have a standalone arts position with the city, and I don't think we have the time to get into that today. We could talk about that at some other time, I'm sure. And I know Keith has relayed to me that there's been prior discussion and interest in, the idea that could we explore this being a full-time standalone position at some point in time. There's all the budget implications with that, but at any rate, this remains the case today that it's a part of another position. And so what we have been challenged with then is trying to figure out finding the right person to take on this role within the duties of what they're doing, or as the case, what we're looking at doing here is probably having to sort of reorganize an existing position, which means in place of what somebody will be doing with their time staffing the Public Arts Commission, we have to unload some of their responsibilities. And so we're working through that a little bit. So all of that to say, we are we're pretty close and we're finalizing who the staff person will be. I'm not quite ready to announce that just yet, but by your next meeting, we will have that person in place. We'll have that person attend the meeting. It looks like the screen has frozen again. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. It's probably just on my end. The main screen of you all sitting in the room there at Public Works keeps freezing up on me, and so I'm not sure if you're hearing me. It sounds like you are. So again, all of that just to say that we are pretty close to having this all figured out, but we've still got to cross some T's and dot some I's before I can kind of give you the announcement of who that is. What I can tell you is the decision that's been made is this position or the duties of liaison to the Public Arts Commission will fall within our Parks and Recreation Division. Jennifer Keller is here on the meeting. Jennifer is our Parks and Recreation Division Manager, and so she oversees everything that's related to Parks and Rec. And we've identified a position that we believe can take on this role. We think we've got someone that has some level of background in art. This is not a perfect scenario. We're not specifically hiring somebody to be the Arts Commission liaison, if you will, but we're trying to find an existing staff person within our division who can fill that role. And we think we've found that person. And again, we're kind of finalizing that. So what you can expect is hopefully something that will be a pretty smooth handoff from Keith to that person. Jennifer is going to be involved in assisting with that transition. She'll probably be setting in on some of your meetings in the near future as we kind of move through that. Keith, I don't want to speak for you, but I believe you're planning to attend the September meeting, and that would be your last meeting. Does that sound correct?
Yes, September meeting, I plan to help the new liaison with putting together the minutes, the agenda, posting it, and then talking about all the agenda items and some things that need to be completed. So it'll be a transition, and I'm still here with the city, so any questions that come up, any background information that's needed, I'm happy to help, but my primary role for running the meetings will not anymore.
Yeah. Thank you, Keith. And we very much appreciate that. And so yeah, the good news is if we have questions, we know how to find Keith pretty easily. And in the extra good news is in Keith's new role with our Human Resources Department, he's working pretty closely with our Community Services team. So we're very happy about that. So again, by the next meeting, we'll have, I believe we'll have our new person in place, and we'll be able to introduce that person to you, and Keith will help with that transition. A couple of other things that I would just mention, one is we would just ask for your patience. We'll do everything we can to support your continued work as a commission, but the new person will be getting up to speed. As I said, the person that we're looking to tap for this role has some background in arts, but will need to get up to speed on all things Salem Public Arts Commission. The good news is they're already a city employee, so they know how the city works, and they know how working with boards and committees and commissions works. So we're in a good place there. So a little bit of patience. It will take a little bit of time for that person to get up to speed. And then the last thing I wanted to note was, as I said, we're looking to have this position reside within our Parks and Recreation Division. And what we see there is kind of a win-win situation. So we have a person that is capable, and we think will do a good job. And it just so happens that they're involved in our Parks and Rec operations, which we see some natural overlapping of the work with the parks, or excuse me, with the Public Arts Commission. So as you all know, and I've heard it a few times even here today, just listening to your meeting, there is there are projects that happen within parks and open spaces and other public spaces that our Parks and Rec team is heavily involved with. So I think there's going to be some good synergy there with what the work that you're doing as a commission and the fact that this will be directly connected to our Parks and Rec operations. And I think that will probably lead to some positive things. So that's kind of what I wanted to say, just briefly to summarize where we're at. Jennifer, I don't know if I've missed anything or if you've got anything else to add, please feel free. And then, of course, if you all have any questions for myself and Jennifer today that we can try to answer for you, we'd be happy to do so.
Well, we've been a little bit spoiled by Keith and his skill set of, you know, being able to put together matrices and things that use the side of the brain that we folk don't normally use. So I'm just, you know, would hope that the person from Parks and Rec, I mean, I think you're right, I think there is some synergy there, but we would hope that they might have similar skill set, at least to be able to handle some of those things like, you know, updating the application that we're doing for the murals and things that Keith has been able to kind of get started on and you know, we're looking forward to working with whomever, but we will really miss Keith a lot. I mean, he's been a real asset and a real friend to the commission and has done a wonderful job for us and kind of learned, you know, amazingly on the fly. He didn't have the art background and just kind of absorbed everything like a sponge and rolled with it and seemed to really enjoy it too. And we really enjoyed you as well.
Thank you, that means a lot.
Thank you.
That's why we'll be commissioning a life-size sculpture of you.
That's gonna be very expensive.
That's of course. Yeah, they're dead. It's gonna be one of the sculptures. We're in West Salem, would you rather be there?
I live there, so thank you so much, that means a lot. I've had a really great time learning with you all about, you know, public art in Salem, and I'm gonna be watching Krista's posts and, you know, everything else, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We know how we can get a hold of you, so
Yes.
you'll have to come to the next big art unveiling of something.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, more information to come. So please stay tuned, and I expect at your next meeting we'll have a lot more to discuss with you about this.
Will you let us know before the meeting actually happens, or?
We probably will be able to do that. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Action items. I think our action item we did that subcommittee.
Yep.
For getting together, and maybe I'll sort of put a call out, get together to talk about what to do next with that. Was there anything else we had some action items or so? Commissioner comment, I had one comment just about the Northgate mural panels that are going up and maybe Keith can, I had a question about whether they were, I thought they were gonna paint on that, the fences in the park. Maybe Jennifer knows a little about this too in Northgate Park, but I did see the report in Salem Reporter with some really nice photos of how they had panels, painted mural panels that they put up there. And I was just wondering how that was established, how they decided to do that rather than paint the fence, and just kind of what the process was, that since we were not involved.
Do you want me to talk about that a little bit, Keith?
Yes, yeah, sure.
Okay. So again, I'm, as Scott mentioned, and I introduced myself earlier. So I'm Jennifer, the Parks and Rec Division Manager. So the reason that panels were done as opposed to kind of the previous parks mural project is really because this one was a little more extensive. The area that was being covered, and the artist who's been working on that wanted to be able to kind of start that process earlier. They knew it was going to be much more labor intensive, and so they were concerned about, with our summer season and getting that installed, the ability to be able to kind of complete that during that duration period. So in this case, it really was just because of the time of year and the length of time and the size of the mural and so forth. So they have about 30 pieces up of that, and they have a couple more to add. They're looking at that around 32 in total that will go up. So they're very close to being completed with that. I will say, whether it's the panels or whether it's kind of the fencing stuff, and I know it was mentioned in your meeting earlier, which I really do encourage, the anti-graffiti stuff. That's something that we love and utilize continually in parks. And certainly anything along those lines, when that's being done, where we are ensuring that that is kind of meeting those same park standards of what we do as Park City staff. So those things do have that applied to them as part of that process to kind of help should they be, vandalized with graffiti and so forth. So I think that's an overall, I was pleased to hear, as that was kind of mentioned and referenced earlier. I think that's a good direction for the commission to go. And that's certainly something we utilize and have found very advantageous in the long run. So that's kind of, it's very close to being done.
And are those on private fences?
So it is a private fence. So part of the process is, but since the back side of the fence is facing towards the park, but the city does not own those fences. And so part of our process when we have done these is we obtain written permission from the owners. We describe the project, what that's going to look like, and we receive that in them so that we have permission to be able to do that, because technically that's their fence, even though it's the backside. So as part of our process, we try to do that outreach and get those permissions before that transpires, so they're fully cognizant that that's going to happen and what that might look like.
Is this an actual program that the Parks Commission have created that they can have other neighborhoods do in their parks?
So years ago, there was more of that transpiring in the parks, but this is, before there was kind of the anti-graffiti sealant and some of those kinds of things in place. And so as these murals were kind of getting put up, they were getting vandalized and graffiti. And so there was a pause on them for a length of time, just because it was very disillusioning to the artists and the neighborhood associations to spend time doing that and then have them vandalized and then, in essence ruined and have to be redone. And so there was a pause on that. And it started again a couple of years ago, actually through the SPIF program, which Parks and Rec oversees, which I oversee. And that is basically the Salem Park Improvement Fund. They're grant awards that neighborhood associations can apply for. And it was proposed by one of the neighborhood associations. In this case, it was Northgate Neighborhood Association, the same one who is doing the current mural, about they were having some prolific graffiti problems and some vandalism problems, and about maybe reinstituting that practice as kind of a pilot project to see if maybe the circumstances were different, and there would be success in that, and as a way to kind of deter that graffiti from happening in the park. So we decided we would go ahead and try those projects again. So far, I've probably jinxed it now by saying it, but so far, we've found that in those areas where these murals have been put up in the park, they relatively have been left alone. So for whatever reason, but we're very pleased about that. And so based on the success of the first one, again, utilizing materials and anti-graffiti stuff, should that be an issue, they requested to do it in a second part in that same neighborhood association that was again having some prolific graffiti problems. And so that's the one with the panels that we were just mentioning. And so we allowed them to do that as well. So ultimately, and kind of with some new discussions that Keith and I have had, and with legal and stuff, and I think were referenced here earlier, some of those things now falling with SPAC's input or as part of the art collection. Ultimately, if language and code changes are made, then we potentially could have the ability to do those in other parks as well. But we wanted to just really kind of see the success of that before we made a large investment in doing that, and see if the outcome was different than had transpired a few years ago. So far it's been successful, but we're kind of continuing to monitor that.
Do you see it as similar to the street art program? I mean, could it fit into something more like that?
To be honest, I'm not really familiar with the street art program. It's just been some minimal discussions when Keith and I have kind of talked about the park murals, and also met with kind of the folks on site relative to sign code and the city's legal office. So I'm not really specific on all the particulars of that. So I'm not sure at this point in time. That's, from my standpoint, that's something I would need to look into more to know that, to give you an appropriate answer, I guess.
Yeah, it just seems like it's something that other parks should know, other neighborhood associations should be aware that it's an option to do, and that there should be maybe a city procedure which is with the street painting program. I was involved in planning the first one, and we actually went to the city and said, how do we do this? And a program was created around our request to do it. And now it's a program that any neighborhood associate or any individual actually can go through a process to do a street painting in their community.
I think
makes sense that the fence painting or whatever it is could fit in a similar kind of program.
I think there's some potential for that. I think we would need to flush that out and again look at code language to see how that may fit with that. None of that really has kind of risen to that threshold because it's relatively new, and there's, like I said, only two, and again it was kind of a pilot program, and it was utilizing SPIF program dollars as a means to make that happen for the neighborhood association. And so and there's certainly guidelines that are associated with those award programs, but nothing that would preclude that from happening. It would just need to kind of be rolled in, because theoretically neighborhood associations would kind of look at that mechanism as a means to make that happen. So I think there's potential there. I think, again, we just have to kind of flush that out and then look at the code language to make sure that inadvertently that we weren't doing anything that maybe didn't fall under the existing code. So, but
it might be a way to avoid having it be deal with sign code. Just if it's an official program to create art, community art, but that's a longer discussion. I apologize. It's a little bit.
No.
I've been thinking about a lot, and we've been talking about that. It seems like there's so many different ways of doing public art in Salem that don't all gel. There's just so many different things that I think that the community is not aware that we can have more public art and that it's easy to do, because right now it's not easy to do, but that there should be a way to kind of consolidate these different types of programs to make them accessible to the community.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments, certainly. And I think that kind of echoes some comments that Scott made earlier with SPAC kind of being under Parks and Recreation Division now. that may afford some opportunities for just what you're talking about, to kind of streamline and be able to kind of do those things, in parks or whatever. And certainly the fence murals are just one aspect of that. So I think, there's potential for, for some of those opportunities and creatively to kind of put art in parks in maybe even ways that folks wouldn't normally think of. And so, yeah, I think there's some opportunity there.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments before we adjourn?
I was just gonna request that the topic of the Echo Earth Globe be put on the agenda for the next meeting, so that we can, if there is a timeline for moving forward on any front, like the fundraising, or it's too late to stop the erosion of the piece, but figuring out, if the piece is going to be repaired, if the money can be raised, what is the process moving forward from there? Is there, there probably would need to be an RFQ for a contractor. What does that look like? What's the timeline? I read on, one of the snarky blogs that someone suggested that it should just be allowed to disintegrate because it would be a message about climate change and global warming, and that didn't seem like a good option to me. So I'd like to just, and now that we have a closer relationship with parks and a giant piece of highly visible public art is beloved by many people, I just would like to, I'd like to, as I'm forecasting, in the next year, 2 years, what have you, where does that fall in the swing of things?
Well, I can tell you now, and Scott can chime in, maybe he has more information. But there was direction from Keith Staley, the city manager, to be able to make an announcement before or at Earth Day 2025.
Okay.
Plans for the Eco Earth Globe to be repaired. Engineering had to submit some reports to the Parks Foundation because they had to report to the state of Oregon on their grant they received. Originally, the cost back in, I think, 2020 was 400,000, but engineering can already estimate that that price is increasing.
I'm sure.
And so that's the first step, is to determine the actual cost of it, and that'll identify the gap that we need to meet. But I think, Scott, it's still Earth Day 2025.
Yep, everything you said, Keith, is correct, and we're moving forward in the planning and preparation of that. The Salem Parks Foundation is the fundraising group, and they, in addition to their community fundraising, you may be aware that they received a pretty substantial legislative allocation in the last session, and they're in the process of, as I understand it, they're in the process of finalizing their agreement and how they're going to receive that funding. And then, as Keith noted, our engineering team is working on getting an updated cost estimate so we can really have more modern numbers. And then I have a commitment to continue working with our Salem Park Foundation representatives to get back together with them once they've received their state funding, or at least the contract for that, and then we're going to kind of work on our next steps. So yeah, everything is pointing towards an announcement at around the time of Earth Day of 25, and so we want to do a big public announcement of some sort that this is funded and we're moving forward, and here's the process. So we'll have more to come on that. Yeah, I appreciate that opportunity to mention that.
I do know that I helped them prepare the request to the legislature. I know that their commitment for fundraising has a cap on it. So there is gonna be a gap.
Okay.
Right, so if the cost goes up to $500,000, they're not gonna raise the difference. So that's why I just bring it up, so that So the ducks get lined up so that when an announcement is made, it is good news and there's a future moving forward.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
it's such a cool Salem story. Anyway, so all I'm asking is if there is any new information at the next meeting, we hear about it. And then,
Would you like me to invite Carol Snyder?
sure, I mean,
Okay.
I'm sure that she will tell you that they've committed to raise X. And we all know that it's going to be X plus to pull it
But
off.
they cannot, according to what you said, they cannot raise X plus.
I'm not sure that they have the appetite for it,
Oh, okay.
you know. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
To your point, yeah, just real quick, we're aware of that that likely gap, you know, with once we update those numbers and the amount of money that's been raised. I'm anticipating that. I can't make any statement of absolute commitment, but just to say that the city wants to get this done. So I'm hoping that we'll find a pathway forward, and I'm going to take the lead on that part of it in terms of, you know, figuring out a way to help fill that gap.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess it's time to adjourn. Thank you, everybody. It's been a really good meeting.
Thank you.
All right, see you all next time.
You.
See you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, thanks.